Thank you for tuning into Resurrecting Jesus. This, in some ways, is a commentary on Bill O'Reilly's excellent book and now movie, Killing Jesus, which was exceptional, and I want to give him props for that. But I am a psycholinguist, a linguistic philosopher, a historian, a philologist, a phonologist, etc., etc. And there are some things that he didn't quite capture about Jesus, and I want to talk about those things. First of all, I'm not going to support everything that I say because I want to cover a lot of ground quickly. So I will make assertions, but just understand that I can debate these with copious amounts of data and arguments. If you would like to inspect some of my theories, you can go to Google and you can type in Rabbi Ba'al Shivah. That's Rabbi, as in the Jewish, R-A-B-B-I. Ba'al, B-A-A-L. You can hyphenate it or not between the two A's, doesn't matter. And Shiva, S-H-I-V-A, or A-H at the end, doesn't matter. Now, the first assertion that I would like to make is that Jesus was the last high initiate of the Pythagorean math cults, which essentially was Pythagoras bringing the guru tradition to the West, to Greece, in its purest, uncorrupted form. Jesus was, in a manner of speaking, a guru. Now, what's fascinating is that both the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians trace their origins to the math cults created by Pythagoras. How do we know that Jesus was part of the math cults? First of all, he was a carpenter. So he had to be familiar with geometry in order to be a carpenter. Secondly, his reference to the word the cornerstone is very fascinating because it's a Freemasonic metaphor. Many people believe, and I agree, that Pythagoras incorporated the Bacchic and Orphic mystery cults. Now, the Orphics were poets, and Bacchus was the god of the theater. This is interesting because historically, not every culture has a strong art culture or a culture of theater. I can think of one particular group of people that does not draw depictions of men or animals because they believe it to be idolatry. They only have a strong music tradition. Of further interest is that turning water into wine was the signature miracle of the cult of Bacchus, the god of the theater. Now, I actually met and went to a screening with the director of Caesar's Messiah, which is kind of a conspiracy theory type movie, which suggests that Jesus was a literary invention of the Flavian Caesar lineage. Now, I completely disagree. Jesus is too rich of a character to have been fabricated, and I will explain why. First of all, at that particular moment in time, the Flavian Caesars were getting in bed with Persia and Babylon for monetary purposes, believing that it would somehow behoove them and that it was sustainable, even though Babylon had always been an invasive war cult intent on owning all of the land on earth, which is why they constantly asked for water and earth. They're not asking of anything of monetary value. They're just saying, all we're asking is for water and earth, which demonstrates that we own all the land and all the water. Now, if you listen to what Jesus said, he said, do not go to the Gentiles and do not even step foot in a Samaritan camp. He said, go to the lost children of Israel. Jesus was openly contemptuous of the of the followers of the Abrahamic law code. He despised the Sadducees, he despised the Pharisees, all of whom practiced the Babylonian version of, it wasn't even really Judeo-Christianity. You can research this topic on Wikipedia. It's similar to Judaism, but not true Judaism. Because Abraham created the Jewish people as he was trying to separate himself from the Babylonian identity, which he despised. So he created a form of circumcision as a form of edible aggression towards the men, so that to in a way shame the men, so that Jewish men would not be like Babylonian men. Now, Muslims today circumcise women because they believe if women enjoy sex, they're whores, or sharmuta. Now, some people refer to Flavius Josephus. Notice how he took the appellation Flavius because he was patronized by the Flavian Caesars. So he had an incentive, because he was a Pharisee, that's right, Flavius Josephus was a Pharisee, not to mention Jesus. Because what Jesus was doing was he was disturbing the powers that be. He was drawing attention to the fact that the Caesars were getting in bed with the Babylonians, the Persians. Now, many of you think that because of the parable of the Good Samaritan, you think that Samaritans are good. But you have to understand what Jesus was actually saying. Jesus was a philosopher. He taught high philosophy. So what that means is that the parable of the Good Samaritan, the Good Samaritan was an exception to the rule. The exception to the rule doesn't prove the exception, it proves the rule. The question that Jesus was asked was, who is our brother? Because Jesus taught, being a Philoish, being a philosopher, he taught a Philoish, or a philosophical family. So his disciples asked him, who is our Philoi, who is our brother? And Jesus responded with the parable of the Good Samaritan, which was the exception to the rule. Now I want to draw attention to something else. When the Pharisees burst in with his family on Jesus, accusing him of expelling demons with the power of Beelzebub, Jesus did not overtly deny it. What he did was he said, he made an allusion to the Temple of Solomon, and he asked if a house divided against itself could stand. And he was talking specifically, this is what he was mentioning was that they were the ones that had caused the fall of the Temple of Solomon, the Babylonian Jews, if you can call them that. Every time Babylon conquered the Jews, as it was constantly trying to expand its tyrannical, despotic influence, taking over Egypt and continuing to move outward, they drug the Jews back to Babylon for re-education. Now, I believe that Jesus might have been expelling demons, which could possibly have been laughter. When a person sneezes, we say, God bless you, because we believe that they're expelling a demon. Now, I think it's possible that Jesus was creating a catharsis in people by using satire, which is a theater concept. And satire comes from the word Saturday. Bacchus was a satyr. And if you examine Muslims today, they actually don't believe in excessive laughter. This is one of the prohibitions of their religion. So I think that when they accused Jesus of expelling demons, he might have actually been making people laugh through satirical, maybe satirizing the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Which wouldn't be uncommon, because Socrates exposed the pretenders to wisdom, and he was associated with Pythagoras and the math cults created by Pythagoras, as were Plato and Aristotle. And you will notice that Muslims do They act much as the people that Jesus spoke against in the Bible do today. Jesus said, "Do not pray in the streets like the hypocrites," which is what Muslims do in their protests all over the civilized world. And Jesus said, "Let ye who is without sin cast the first stone." And under Muslim law, stoning, under Sharia law, stoning is acceptable and considered good. Well, thank you for tuning in to our first episode of Resurrecting Jesus. We'll be continuing this discussion about Jesus in future episodes. Thank you very much for your time.